Hi, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Esoterics Today with Amber and Satara. I am Amber Chamberlain, the Suburban Lightworker, and I have with me the glorious, as always, Satara Jules Lightbringer, Lightworker Supreme. And today in this episode, we are talking about fractals. Fractal selves, and we are going to define that for you, but we know that the topic is not always easy for people to conceptualize. We're pretty conversant in it from day to day here, but we're going to take our time, unpack what that really means. And in order to do so in this hour, I'm going to turn here to Satara and ask her about it. So Satara, if you will, jump us off as to why it seems relevant today to us to talk about fractals, what they are, and sort of get into that topic. Why are we doing this today?
We're doing it today because it seems to be something that's cropping up more and more in random conversations and things that you're coming across on sort of social media, etc. There still seems to be quite a gap between the people that are fully coherent with it and people that have got no clue that it even exists. So I think it's useful to kind of step that forward and just start to broaden it for, the people that are somewhere in between those two poles, really. Yeah, carry on.
Well, yeah, Satara, you make a good point. And I think you're saying that in our collective as a whole, that there is a subset of us that are really just sort of flowing and conversant with the conceptualization of selves.
Yes.
What we're talking about when we're talking about fractals, fractal selves. Some people like to call it past lives, future selves, and all of the above. There's a lot of ways of describing it metaphorically, and so much of in our spirit science and alchemy conversations or conscious conversations has to be done by metaphor, right? Yeah. But I guess what I want to position is this, Satara. We are now hearing that we are maybe to a couple billion people, if we listen to Tom Medina or if we hear some of the other people out there in large format on social media talk about light workers or the Starseed community, etc., that we may be now really hitting into the couple of billion or a few billion people on the planet. Mm-hmm. And this construct of fractal selves is an enormous construct of understanding where that consciousness is concerned. Am I right?
Very, very much so. As people sort of progress along their spiritual paths, they get to see bigger and bigger pictures, as we all know, because it's something that we all do regardless of how we've come in and why we've come in. We get the remembrances, we get the aha moments, etc. But for me, from like the whole fractalization aspect, again, I'm going to kind of take it back from source down to the splitting away from source to be able to be, instead of one energetic, to then split to 13 energetics, the original plus 12, and then the 12 splintering off and splintering off. Well, as we've all done this splintering off, we have infinite number of self, because each splinter really is one creation that is then fractalized and splintered, however you want to call it, to be identical to each other, but to then decide to have different journeys to be able to experience all the experiences that have been put before us throughout the whole of creation.
Are you referring to, because I think one of the things I think I do in these conversations with us is I interpret really the narrative that you provide. I think you provide some real fundamental understanding, and I think I can sort of spread it out across other ways of describing it, right?
Very much so.
What you just said there was huge.
Yeah.
And it's a huge clue or breadcrumb, what we like to call it, as to what we're talking about in terms of selves and multidimensionality of selves and fractalization of selves, past, future, and everything dimensionally in between. Specifically, Satara, you're talking about soul blueprint.
Yes.
And from that language, sort of the soul blueprint and the shifts and changes that occur to the blueprint across time, space, time. Another piece to tuck into it. Can you speak to why you think increasing numbers of human beings on the planet are becoming aware of this dynamic design of the human being? Why is that happening?
I think that as more people operate through the Jade Gate intergalactic consciousness, that starts to automatically funnel that realization down, albeit in smaller pieces, but then they gather momentum to start to realize how vast it is. We start to think, oh yes, I remember me in a past life as that aspect of type, or that particular person, or however we want to humanize it into how we feel and what we remember and have been reshown in some circumstances in the current lifetimes. And I think that gradually we start to realize that it's more than that. We will start to see our guides and helpers and know that our guides and helpers, our whole light team, are just other aspects of us in different dimensional energy and form. And most people will grasp that to that level, if only just there at the moment.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I've observed in our collective, right, across social media, talking to clients and various conversations, is what I notice is the level of conversation I can have is based upon what I learn very quickly about the person I'm talking to, or the Facebook group I'm engaging with or watching, to their collective consciousness about what truth they can hold. What I mean by that is, so on our planet for a long time, there was always a collective consciousness that said we can hold the construct of past lives.
Yes.
Yeah, that's been on the planet a long, long time.
It has.
And only teeny weeny little pockets, it occurs to me, was ever able to hold the future selves. Like, I'm from the future, future man. And you would see that sort of showing up more in movies, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Totally. So that was on the planet in small pockets. But by no means until more recently, until like I always reference this for people listening, because I think it's meaningful to our community of listeners and viewers to mention the harmonic convergence, the harmonic concordances, the equinoxes series, the solar activities, the 2012 trigger, the 2017 Lionsgate trigger. I could go on and on with these, but those things were very meaningful events en masse. But it was only until somewhere in those later triggers did the galactic consciousness of galactic selves become more normative story for people to begin to conceptualize. So Tara, why now? Why this time on the planet? We talk about ascension and consciousness, we talk about evolution and human consciousness, but how do you like to talk about it?
I talk about it in just something as simple as timing. The 1957 convergence basically started to create a series of very well catalogued events now that we've now lived through since that time. And it basically started to speed up the time and space continuum in 1957. That was like the reset button that began the trajectory. As with all trajectories, there's certain points that it will pick up speed or slow down within that. And that has basically allowed for the different realignment of consciousness that is starting to tap into what many would see as deep past here at like Atlantis and Lemuria. Again, going back, if you go back to the like mid-80s, you didn't hear much about Atlantis or Lemuria. Atlantis was the man from Atlantis. It was on the TV.
Man from Atlantis. Yeah,
that was
I
it.
grew up in the 80s.
That wasn't a civilization. It wasn't a culture. It wasn't really spoken about or mentioned.
No.
Some, what I would call secret societies, would perhaps be talking about this behind closed doors. You know, there's fraternities, etc., that would have gone with a particular route through Atlantis that is still kind of reverberating through their halls. But for mainstream, it just wasn't done, wasn't heard about. And anybody that had any kind of memories of this, myself included, kept it zipped because it wasn't here. Nothing was rippling out here. But I'm sure that there are many thousands like me out there that have these memories, that they can remember where they were, what they were doing, how it worked, what their particular roles were throughout the different archetypical playouts that we were even doing then.
So because this conversation, oh, sorry.
No, carry on.
So because this conversation is about fractal selves, I think it's helpful to give that kind of background that you just gave. And again, these are always, I feel like these conversations you and I have are like loaded with what they call in the movie industry Easter eggs, but also, right? But also breadcrumbs, because I think that some of the things that you say or I say, they're going to go out and Google, and my God, when you Google, your world will blow open. That's how it works. And that's what I wanted to say to you. Is it the World Wide Web that was an expression of the speed you're referring to, the speed of consciousness?
That has certainly helped, because that is allowing for a different level of interconnectivity that we haven't had here since we were working on telepathic lines way back. Again, looking at it on a linear theme, shall we say, rather than knowing that actually when we talk about way back, we're talking about now.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, pivoting right back into that fractal selves aspect. So listen, I'm one of those people that can absolutely, we were just giggling about it a little while ago. I'm one of those people who's very conversant with myself and my close peeps. You know, I perceive selves, and they play, some of it's just ephemera, some of it's just, hey, I just happen to know that, and it's curious to me, and I don't spend much time there consciously. And every now and again, some of that self stuff some of those selves will pop in to give me a word on something. Yeah. And then there's other aspects of self that I use as what I would call my higher self, but really they're, because of their placement in my, should I say, in my hologram. They have vibrational, Yeah, they have information for me that I can engage that is useful to my practical everyday life and choices as a fairly advanced consciousness human on the planet. I mean, I just find it really, kind of helpful. I do want to give a little bit of a clue before I ask you this, Satara, to the people listening and watching. One of the things that was true about me and a lot of people, not about Satara probably because of your animal from the get-go this lifetime, but I think I'm probably representative of a lot of those then in that next rung out, okay, and consciousness, that very small group, right, that it's ever expanding here. I started out with the higher self motif, and we've talked about that. Then it was sort of a higher, the higher self. Then I started to kind of have a committee that was sort of my higher selves.
Mm-hmm.
We name them, our committee, so to speak, our council or committee. Then after about the 2012 event happened, because I'm giving some clues, because people are going to take this in and you're going to identify it this way in their architecture, because I think I'm more clearly stepwise this decade. Okay, then somewhere after the 2012, heading 2014 and 2016, I began to have what then identified as a light council.
Mm-hmm.
That higher selves construct gave way and almost said goodbye, see you later, we've had a good time. And I got reference where I put them over here. Now they're here. Mm-hmm. And this is where I began to get awareness of white brotherhood, of ascended masters, of angelics. They just started showing up in my awareness. And I'd have to Google, I'd have to go, who's that? What's that? What was that I just heard? And then the world opened up. So, so Tara, what comes to mind? Oh, and it wasn't until just this last 2 years, maybe a year and a half, did I realize they're all me.
Yeah.
And I want to say this, there's a huge part of our collective, Satara, who cannot forgive, love, and accept themselves enough to know that, say, an ascended master. Let's talk about Isis, okay, because shows up for me. Kuan Yin, Saint Germain, Michael, Archangel Michael. I think because of our programming on this planet, the construct is we've been entrained to believe we cannot possibly be, we cannot embody the vibratory resonance of these higher selves and beings.
Yeah.
So we can't permit ourselves to know that we are them, that we are God. God is us, we are God, or source, we are source, source is us. It's the same framework.
Yeah.
All that I just said to you, what's coming to mind?
Other than hierarchy and separation.
But don't skip that.
No, I'm not going to skip it, actually, because it's like that is the greatest programming we have here, is the whole hierarchy and separation, believing that we are not enough. For whatever reason, we have had this kind of lack program that runs. Yeah. Which is just befuddling, for want of a better expression, because once you realise that you are everything, who's not equal?
But guess what, people, planetarily, what she just said, another enormous key to truth right now. We giggled a little while ago. I was making some silly joke about, before we got on to do the show, I said, yeah, how do you keep a good light worker down? You entrain him or her or them to not know who they truly are, such that their light, their emanation capability stays truncated, stays limited, okay? Because once you begin to get on the wavelength of holy cow, I am you, you are me, I am them, they are I, then there is no limitation. And once you awaken to selves, to this fractal component, there is no turning back. And that's what's turning the tide of the energies on the planet. That's what's happening as to why I would call the synthetic, or some people call it false, synthetic matrix, false matrix, that we've been exploring on this planet. That's why that's eroding. And that's why we have flipped the switch into this the organicity of truth, of sovereignty. So Tara, somebody might be asking, yeah, well, it's a cool concept and it's so fun to go around dressed as Saint Germain, or as, it's fun to go to Ascended Master Con. Yeah. Go to, go and be dressed up like, or, I'm looking like ISIS today and I'm wearing the app. That's all fun and games. But really, what is important about exploring, whether you call it your past lives, your future selves, your fractal selves, and we're going to do a whole other show on like soul merges and soul braids and walk-ins. But what's important about it right now for our community?
For our community, it's important to know that we are already particularly ascended. There's this huge thing of, oh, I've got to pedal up to get ascended. We've been descended because we are everything. So therefore we are every possible energy, from the very highest energy to the very lowest energy to everything in between. So there's no battle to be ascended. The only battle here is for remembrance, really, is how I kind of view it, to be able to remember that everything is perfect, that we've constructed this game, if you like, this very interesting platformed game, which is like a 360 parallel nightmare. If you actually look through, it's interesting the way that programming works, but to actually navigate it, that's all we wanted to do. We wanted to create this rat's nest. We wanted to immerse fully in it, and we wanted to break out. End of thought process.
And that's, you just said a mouthful right there.
Yeah.
And what I find helpful about engaging myself, and first of all, nobody could accuse me of being schizophrenic. I'm too insane and successful in this 3D matrix to life. I've been very successful professionally, personally. I mean, I maintain a very average work and love and family life, beautiful. But my point is, I harness the content that I'm now aware of in order to serve my mission.
Yeah, totally. And we have that with our reference points across our fractals.
Yeah, I consider myself really, because I've become increasingly comfortable and conversant, and that also means even with light language. I trust the interaction, the dialogue, the conversation that I have with any form of language with myself to be either serving my holographic life in some really sovereign, positive way.
Yes.
I check in this human life, and what would be better, this or that? What step would be more useful, this or that, or these? And I reference the aspect of myself, because that's how I see all of that. I see that all as me and aspects of myself that I have access to for discerning the way forward in this incredibly beautiful and important lifetime.
Yes.
That's the only way I think all of us would agree, and you've seen it over and over, that there are enormous misuses, abuses, misconstruals, and weird acting out in the name of our of selves.
Yeah, totally. And again, it is just the weird and wonderfulness of total exploration of something.
Because that stuff's okay too.
We are all weird and wonderful.
Weird and wonderful, but not, I'm so patently bedrock sane that I really eschew, because I don't feel, I'm so practical. I'm very Scottish. I don't really have time to spend my days or nights fantasizing into those lives.
Yeah.
Being romanced by them, being I don't know, trying to overemphasize one aspect of myself. I like this 3D presentation. I like your 3D. And that's another thing too. I sometimes will see the expanded selves, lives, fractals story be misconstrued as a way to not be here now.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of people do go down that route if for whatever reason here is not enough for them. Therefore, they will step into a fractal aspect and spend more time as that fractal aspect than they'll want to spend as themselves in the human form.
And how are they paying the bills? Who's making dinner? That's always my question, guys. Who's feeding the
Yeah,
baby?
who's making dinner? Get it right. Who's making the food?
Who's cooking? Because this human body of mine
Yeah.
is, one of my fractal selves, Aga. She's always interested. I mention her from time regularly. Yeah. She's interested in because different harmonics, of the harmonics in the other octaves in which these selves participate. I just said a mouthful. Go Google all that. There's no need to do what we do here in the third, where there's food, water, safety, shelter.
No, it's a totally different ball game, isn't it? To just be able to exist just on energy and not need to have to fold clothes, put a roof over one's head, because it's just not needed. It is very convoluted down here when it comes to what we have to do for the whole element of self-care.
And you didn't just stumble into here. That's the other thing what you just said is so important. And please, you guys who watch and listen, you didn't just fall from the cosmic orchard like an apple off the tree and bump down onto the third. You like that visual? You made a choice.
Was it a golden apple?
Oh, God. Yes. My point is you made a choice. And by the way, the other thing that I notice about our community and the selves, expanded selves and fractal story is one is better than the other. Fifth dimension is better than the third. 12th is better than the fifth. I mean, that again, you guys, is the neurological brain in its hierarchical requirement in order to function on the third, malfunctioning in its construct for any other dimension and any other existence in the multiverse. It just doesn't exist. And so you're applying that kind of thinking construct to something that is actually outside of what the brain can conceive. Now, how it is that I can conceive that with this little old noggin and brain, I got no idea. And it's true of Satar too. It's like there are so many of us, right? Being born, coming to the planet, arriving, that can talk like this.
Yeah,
it's weird.
We just already know it anyhow, so it's already hardwired into the brain before we've had to even have the thought.
We were supposed to be able to talk like this.
Yeah, of course. Because the more of us that can talk like this, we'll start to normalize it for those that are starting to think like it, but not able to talk like it yet.
And that's exactly that's why these conversations are so rich.
Yeah, totally. Because how many people have you come across, in your lifetime that you can see a kind of there with so many concepts, but they almost have to whisper them and hope that someone can listen.
Well, this was me, sweetheart, just in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I got 2011, I was starting to understand some things, and I'd be like, oh my God. I mean, I'm over here in my townhouse up here in suburbia. That's why I'm the suburban light worker.
Mm-hmm.
And I, suburban US, and I'm thinking, what the F?
Yeah.
Am I the only person who knows this? And I am no conspiracy theorist. Yes, I like my organic food. Yeah, I'm not a vegetarian. No, I don't bang a drum, every morning, and I'm not chanting every morning. I got my little energy routine because I have had one for a long time. But I'm thinking, where am I going to find people to have even? Yeah, he said, hello. Where am I gonna? He's like, right here. I got this. Where am I gonna find people to talk to about this? Now, you guys gotta understand. I didn't find Satara and I are having an incredibly different conversation so freely than I would have ever had, even this time last year. I mean, Satara, what do you think, first of all, could you give a couple of examples of fractal selves? Because I think that, you know, our fractal selves are a very different set of awarenesses on this planet today.
Totally. I'll give two examples. I'm going to bring one in that is part of the Great White Brotherhood and is part of the Ashtar Command aspect of it. Although Ashtar Command is more broadened, shall we say, because there's many commanders within the Ashtar Command. And my particular fractal, the name isn't remotely human, it's just a couple of notes, which is like a yeah, is all it is. And I would put her more feminine than masculine because she's very gentle. And what her role is to go to thriving planets to be able to take samples of life forms there, mainly flora and fauna, to be able to help repopulate struggling planets.
Okay, but we're going to meet this being. Satara just gave another gigantic boulder of a breadcrumb. We have gender fluidity on this planet because it's more highly resonant. This next octave that we are edging into around gender neutrality. Gender is not actually a construct outside of the third.
Mm-hmm.
So we, of course, are going to have selves, fractal selves. We will want to attribute a male or female dynamic because of our third dimensional lifetimes here, but we will understand that that's why Satara just said kind of more of a feminine, divine feminine aspect is more resonant with this being, but is actually
androgynous.
Androgyny. So, kutise motori kiriema torsite nyuntor sitarintor with yisenta ter.
Says it all.
So now for us, and right, I was waiting because for me, some of the light language with myself will immediately recognize something being brought forward and someone being brought forward, and we do a greeting, we have a communication. This is also highly triggered interaction for your exposure to it as well. So I welcome this aspect to our conversation. Satara, if you can do a little bit of speaking and translating so our viewers and listeners can also really hear what she is bringing forward.
So basically what she's just bringing forward is the fact that really, from our sort of point of view, she would be a biochemist because they class all as like physics and chemistry is one and the same, really, off planet. It's just the same energy. We just bung it all separately here. As you can hear my cat, because he can feel this aspect around, so he's losing the plot, but that's fine. We'll just let it.
I'm losing the plot.
So basically, her mission in the embodiment that she's going through at the moment is purely to make sure that life is sustained and sustainable.
Satara brings up a very important point here. A lot of selves have been showing up to our awarenesses in the third dimension because they're letting us know that they are here and they are serving and they are supporting. This is true of Aga. I would say Aga is the most closely aligned being to her.
Mm-hmm.
The one you're describing here, that has a name that you just can't even pronounce.
No.
And so in Aga's case, it's definitely following my lifetime. She is me, I am her, and I am her in a 3D form. So she's very interested in, like I mentioned in another show, the oxidization that shows up on what I think is Scottish, Scandinavian skin. Well, for her, it's about oxidization here on the planet and the toxic chemical load.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's
Whereas this particular aspect is more interested on an intergalactic level, just for the way that she kind of goes off to collect particular samples. The first time that I was asked to step into herself to view what she was doing, we went to one of my favorite planets, actually, in Andromeda, and it's a planet by the name of Na. NAA is how it's sort of Na, to give the expression. And that is very sort of crystalline rich, but it's like silica. And it almost morphs. It's almost like a silica plasma mix.
I see it.
She was telling me that the reason there was a little party went to collect some samples, and it looked like jelly crystals, but large jelly crystals, about a centimeter, so like half an inch-ish in size. And they were in different colors, but only one small piece was taken from each of these colors on this particular planet. After, you know, all the negotiations had taken place, everybody knew what was happening, why it was happening, everybody's happy. And these were taken onto one of the motherships that was quite close to there, because it got a particular level, which was huge. It's like the size of a country, just the one level on the ship. And it is basically what we would think of here as hydroponics. So each sample would be able to be put in there, and it would basically quadruple in size by the hour.
Wow.
To be able to then, once that had done that, to return the same amount to the planet we've taken it from and saying, thank you for letting us duplicate this. Here's your sample back. And then being able to go away with what we've now grown and created, knowing we're going to continue growing and creating from this, to be able to repopulate other planets back with this rich energy source that they've lost for whatever reason. So whether they've lost that through war, whether they've lost that through all sorts of random occurrences that go out through the galaxy, different meteor showers, different impacts, everything, but to be able to allow the planet to have more vibrant energy in these forms allows that to start to really get the biosphere back working.
Okay.
And who would ever know that?
And who would ever know that? So is that what you said? Who would ever know that?
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
okay.
Who knew?
So, but here's the deal, sweetie. You know that. And
yeah,
there
I
are
know.
people like us on this planet increasingly who have just an amazing array of awareness and increasing numbers of that. Because I want to say that at this point in the show, if you're listening and or watching, there's a few of you here, your minds are getting blown. You've heard light language between us. You have met an aspect of Satara at this point that is aware. Remember, we're talking about fractal selves. What she just showed you was an aspect of herself, okay, that in her 3D form that she is aware of, and she's aware of many, actually, many, almost infinite, which is different from me. This helps people understand this construct about who's on the planet today and what's similar and different about us, so you can then compare and contrast yourself and your friend, your friends you begin to talk to all about all this. In my case, I don't carry that story. I don't carry that narrative. I don't carry that awareness. My mission is different, but what Satara just described, because I don't want to leave the miraculous thing that she just positioned with you all here, which is, of course, the experimentation, the use of resources from one planetary system to another planetary system, the interaction sort of at the scientific community level, the research level, the taking care of, the nurturing planetary bodies and her beings, peoples, animals, mineral level. That's since time, space began, source source then began to know itself, and thus the fractals were born. Again, another little Easter egg, yeah?
Yeah, totally.
So it's the point that it just continually unfolds. I mentioned the Mandelbrot chaos theory as another for my spirit science listeners and watchers. But what Satara just offered you all is a glimpse into her current embodiment on the planet today. Now, she's not embodying specifically a well-known ascended master. Okay, at the moment in her, who she just showed you, she's not showing you Isis. She's not showing you Kuan Yin. She's not showing you El Moria. She's not showing you, I mean, we could go on and on. She's showing you one that has not made it into the literature. Do you understand?
I've got lots that don't make it into literature.
You know, just like biblically speaking, there's the canonical texts and the non-canonical texts. And my scalp is just itching because of all the energy
activity.
I feel like going, but
I'm going like that behind you.
Thank you. I need help. But you know, I just think it's delightful that we can do it this way. Now, could you shift? I'll put another one out for us. So doing a little bit of show and tell so that you guys can catch the wind, catch the vibe, catch the spirit, catch the exposure. That's why we do these conversations. First of all, because we have fun with each other and we're conversant and we just love to do it. And secondly, because it's part of the mission to be able to do it like this. I would say another aspect for me that shows up is this is a more masculine identified being energy, which is called Etu. And Etu's been with me for a few years and is a Sirian Sirius B aspect of self, galactic self. Showed up a few years ago. You think, oh, Amber, how did he show up? Well, all I can tell you is at that phase of life, these aspects just came into my awareness. I'm clear, sentient, clairaudient, clairvoyant, and they just started talking to me. And in the case of Etu, he's highly, as they are on Sirius B, Google away, incredibly mathematical, and really converse in a very mathematical language. It's just the best way to say it. And very much our sciences come through, I think, the Sirius constellation. But anyway, and so when I'm needing to understand from a spirit science standpoint, because I'm no mathematician in my personal professional life in a 3D, I'm more of a psychotherapy counseling, you know, that kind of service to other soul in the third here. But in order for me to be able to talk to you about this today and to speak with Satara and understand the cosmology and galactics, he taught me a lot, as did an inner earth being, a couple of them. So I have a few good teachers, and I get asked to look up. Trust me that Wikipedia has been a girl's best friend for physics and astrophysics and advanced quantum physics and quantum mechanics. I know a lot because of what Etu and some of the other beings have directed me to in our literature and content that's available to all human beings. They help me connect the dots. So that's another example. And if you'd like to know how Etu sounds to me when I'm sometimes I converse and sometimes I share with clients when Etu is asking to come in and say something. Loves to come through and have a little bit of that. That's interesting, yeah. Fractal selves.
Very, very much so. I love the fast languages like that because to me that's kind of, you know, it's covering insectoid languages with all the clicks and the wonderful noises that they can make with the like mandible aspects rather than the mouths we have here. It's just incredible to listen to. You just think, I can talk back to you, but you're going to think my accent sucks.
Even this for Etu, I get kind of chuckled at because it's not exactly It's just not, it's just how through the human filter and the human nervous system, it's just my
Yeah.
interpretation. Language,
Totally.
and it's great to say this to our viewers and listeners, understand, and I've said it before, we've said it before, all language
Jesus light.
is light language.
Yeah.
Everything is light. There isn't anything that isn't. And this is just how the light plays on my particular vocal cords. And interestingly enough, if you get a room full of us who are engaged with, say, Sirius B, or any of these constellations, we will sound a little similar because it'll play on the human vocal cords in a very similar. There are discernible sounds.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Which is really interesting because it's like Sirius B is so diverse. If you think that it's quite water-based, for starters, so it's like where all of our dolphin, and I'm saying that correctly rather than dolphin, and whale consciousness comes from. It's all Sirius B. Such incredible beings there, as well as, you know, some very well-known, what we would have thought of here as Egyptian gods through our timelines come from there. So it's like when I go into Sirius B, I go into the language of Hyepta, which was the forerunner of ancient Egypt. The light language that I would come up with is quite striking because of that, because it sounds commanding to our human ears because of where the hierarchical system has like leveled here on the planet for it. So let me just pick a subject to talk about, and I'll just bring some through. Meishtea kanashta otishtia niala ota ochianastishtaya tela uriana, which I've just written about the lighting system on this planet being electric. But for something that boring, it sounds amazing.
Well, what you're talking about, the lighting system you were showing, because this is the other thing, the return to this planet, he's wanting to talk, is because of the feline, yeah. What you're talking about is also referencing the use of pyramids, the pyramidal fire that was used to
create kinetic energy to create.
Yeah. So you're also talking about that, but
luminaire.
Yeah, and people, the reason Satara and I are so conversant, and I can't catch everything. Sometimes I can't catch everything that's said or exchanged, but I'm a linguist on this planet for these expanded. I just know that one of my mission aspects here planetarily is linguistic understanding.
And do you remember where that came from? I'm just being poked.
Huh?
I'm just being poked. I'm like, okay, I'll ask.
Okay, quiz me. Okay, I'm being asked, where did my linguistics come from? I don't know where it came from.
I'm going to just mention the Great White Brotherhood again and the Order of Melchizedek.
Oh, shoot. I was
Melchizedek Order basically was a part of moving ambassadors around the whole of creation, and to be able to do that you had to be conversant to be able to feel and understand the language. So therefore most people will have passed through that training at some point or be going through it now. So therefore we've all got that potential, but it's whether or not we've actually been bothered to remember any of it and bring it into here. And I've just made you get goosebumps, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's great because I'm right now I'm in a next round with Melchizedek. I was in a round with Melchizedek around 2012 to 16. Sort of on a lead. He was on a sort of a lead with me at that point, and then I just remember I told you just a couple months ago. I said, "Oh God!" I said, "Oh, Melchizedek has told me I'm going kind of into round 2."
Yeah.
Which is exactly why this other work has come up.
Why they've just presumably nudged me to go, you need to get on that. Okay, I'm on it.
Remind her, because I was going to say to you before we even got on this call that the reason that other work that I told you about came up was because of the work that was going on right now in Melchizedek.
Yeah.
You guys, go out there, Google the Order of Melchizedek, or Melchizedek, the Ascended Master, Melchizedek, and the many expressions. But that takes me back to lifetimes fractal-wise. If we want to talk about a linear past lifetime, that takes me back to early Christendom.
Yeah.
It takes me back to when Druids, frankly, were some of the early Christians, which is very not well known. The Essenes, it takes me back to my Essenes experience. Do you hear the fractal lives? In this one, it would be, these are actually linear past on this planet. She and I have been talking to you today in this last little round before we got to that, from what people want to call future selves. Of course, we know they are all here, all now, and we have access to all of it now.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And this is why so many of us travel between fractals, depending on where we want to look at and experience. So I know that some of the work I do with my clients, they will come to me and they say that they want to actually to go to a particular planet. So I'll just organize fractals for us to step into to be able to experience that planet.
Okay, that's fascinating. Now that I want to say something about that too. Again, Sitar just said something, miraculous. For a lot of our listeners and viewers, I'm not ever forgetting you guys that we talk like this and we say some things that drop some bombs. And even for a very advanced group that you are watching, because you are very advanced, if you are watching us sisters over here having these chats, but there are pieces that you're like, what'd you just say? So Tara, you just were talking about, say that last piece kind of again, what you were talking about.
So if someone's asking to visit a particular planet, so if we go, let me just pull out the hat to actually drill it down a little bit more. I'm going to go to Alpha Centauri regardless of what I'm being told to do, because it's one of my favorite planets, my little sister.
Too big, the energy is so big for me. Yeah,
I want to go there. So if somebody wants to explore that particular planet, there'll be a reason that planet has been coming into their mind through meditation or whatever. We go, okay, we can do that. I've got quite a good knowledge of the planet anyhow, because I jump in between one of my fractals there on a regular basis, and my fractal there is a mantid. So totally different ball game when it's there. It's all quick movement and everything kind of going on. But when I know that someone wants to jump in there, of course they will have a fractal there. It's just a case of me going, can I book the fractal? Can we do this? Because they might not have stepped into that fractal knowingly before, or maybe even at all. They might not have had that contact. This thought of that planet might be that first contact to be made with that fractal aspect of their team.
I find it
beautiful to do it.
Yeah, to do it. And so the reason I had Satara circle back to that and go a little deeper into it is because it fascinates me to no end that, although I'm not sure why it does after my own personal experiences, it fascinates me to no end at the number of people that would, that people come forward to Satara and say, hey, take me there. It brings me to this point. I am aware, and I think ambassador is a very good word for our kind. I clearly identify with the construct, as you do, of ambassadorhood in this whole storyline. But increasing numbers of human beings are having, whether via astral travel, remote viewing, other telepathic connectivity, experience with their galactic selves, and they're seeing themselves in settings with other beings. It's getting really hot. It's just happening to people. They don't have anybody to talk to. They must be going WTF.
Yeah.
But it's happening increasingly. And it doesn't surprise me that you're having people coming forward going, you know what, now I want to consciously
do it. Totally. So for whatever reason, they know I will hold their hand and take them, and they'll be quite comfortable, quite safe, quite happy. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
I am the comfort blanket of the universe.
Right. And I think that's the other thing too. Once increasingly as people's drop and recover from, heal from the entrainment that says anything other than in my 3D life is not safe.
Mm-hmm.
Once people discover the sovereign life, that sovereignty is the ultimate safety. Don't get me started on those folks who are out there going crazy around that 5G issue, right? Oh my God, 5G at the tour, or wherever it was that they were like gonna, oh my God, don't get me started over there. You had something recently in your neck of the woods that were like, oh, they were gonna do a big 5G, and oh my God, is that gonna cause me a problem? I'm like, people, sovereignty, relax.
Just step out of the program, walk away from it, thank it for showing up so you knew you should step out of it. End of thought process.
Manage your, let's go back to Consciousness 101, people. Manage your thoughts, manage your emotions. Manage your thoughts, manage your emotions. It is a moment-to-moment experience sometimes to not get caught up in the mass hysteria. But I think my point is, and we're going to come up on our hour here, is to not get too extended, long for people to listen and so forth. But I think we have had a beautiful revelatory, what I would call advanced and introductorily advanced conversation on what is fractal selves, what do we mean when we say fractal, soul aspects, soul blueprint, always unfolding, and also mission oriented. I think we've had a really good one here. I'm going to ask you then to sort of, Satara, sum up where we've been in this conversation, and your impressions from it as you close us up today.
Okay. Well, I just hope that people are starting to realize that there's one of them everywhere, that they're every possible conceivable race and more, so that there is more compassion for every possible conceivable race and more. Because when we realize that there's a part of us experiencing whatever the perceived pluses and minuses of that particular race is, that's it in a nutshell. When we've realized that, how can we have anything but love and compassion for that race?
And love and compassion for ourselves and for
exactly. We are Groot.
We are Groot.
And my cat is just fed up of all the visitors. Can you tell?
Sorry about that, buddy.
That's okay. He should be used to it. This is, all of my clients know this cat because he's stone deaf, so he doesn't hear a thing. But that means he feels everything.
So he has been being bombarded while we've been talking.
Yeah, okay. Bless him. We've kind of given him a little bit of a massage energetically today with a few, cold spots coming in.
Oh, good. Well, everybody, it has been a pleasure being with you for another episode of Esoterics Today with Amber and Satara. I hope we've given you some grist for your consciousness mill. I have a feeling we did. And we will be back with you this next month with something else kind of delicious. Please share our work. If even it's just to say, oh my God, you have got to hear these two women. I don't mind people chuckling at my expense. I got bigger fish to fry. All right. Much love, everybody.
Okay, speak to you soon. Bye. Bye.